Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Make Mine Mayday. Welcome back to Spider-Verse Part 2 here on Make Mine Mayday, the show all about Spider-Girl and her world. This time we're covering the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would once say, and tackling the madness that is this storyline. Before we get started, we always have to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/SpideyDudeNetwork. We've got our patrons listed up here on the screen. Allison, Cindy, Ed, Georgia, Greg, Janelle, Cindy, Catherine, Keegar, Laura Howard, Master Drammond, Phoenician, Scott, Vanessa, Vicky, and then we have our VIPs. Scott, Sebastian, Vinkman, Winnipeg, Webhead, and the Friendly Neighborhood tier you see up on the screen. We also have our newest patron, which I'm pulling up their name right now. We have Lump Moose. I can't say the name. Lump Moose is our newest Patreon over on patreon.com/SpideyDudeNetwork. Thank you guys for your support. You can always check out our other great shows here on the channel, such as Clone Saga Chronicles, a show all about the 1990s Clone Saga, Spectacular Radio, the show all about the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon, Amazing Spider-Man Classics, the show all about Spider-Man from the beginning with Jack and Javi Trujillo. Season 2 is out now. We have the Sal Buscema Era podcast, which is all about the seminal run of Sal Buscema's run on Spectacular Spider-Man. They just had a new episode released talking about the cosmic-powered Spidey. And Voices from the Eerie, a Gargoyles podcast, has a brand new episode out right now as of this recording. So check it out over on our front page. And if you want to see the video version of that show, you can find it over on Patreon. Of course, our Patreon first show, Books of X, is going to have the newest episode dropping very soon, and with myself and Neil Bogenreiter. So check that out as part of our Patreon page. Hello, everybody. I am Zach Joyner, your friendly neighborhood webmaster, and of course, we are always joined to Make My Mayday by Miss Kelly McDaniel. Hello, Kelly.
Hello, and Neil was supposed to be the man behind the chair, but he's here.
Yes, he's
in public.
I'm the devil on your shoulder. Hello.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm well dressed for the occasion.
That's good.
So he's just Ken.
Hi.
Anyway,
he was supposed to be in backstage and he wasn't. So for those of you that are watching us live on YouTube, welcome. Thank you for watching us live. If you are listening to us on the audio edition, be sure to give us that 5-star review. Let us know how we're doing. And of course, this is going to have probably some live comments and some visual aids potentially. So pay that in mind as we go through on this episode. So hello to everybody in our comment section. Bit of a disclaimer, this is going to be a heavy episode, just going to tell you. So Kelly, I'll kind of let you kind of elaborate maybe in the housekeeping section.
Well, I mean, housekeeping is nothing about what's going down, but I did want to apologize for some things said in part 1, because I actually went back and listened to myself, which is something I don't normally do. And I blame you for this, Zach, because I wasn't going to talk about Silk at all last episode, but we had to, and we needed to. It was important, but I don't know what happened. But
Go away, dude.
The best way I can describe it is I literally was triggered, and I was taken back to 2014 and was just as angry. And so, basically, like, you can hear my voice go from like pretty chill to like just being like some traumatized child as soon as we mention Silk. I feel bad, but I wanted to basically just kind of state that I'm sorry about that. I did promise to keep a cool head and kind of snapped. I did say things in anger that kind of made things sound bigger and badder than they were, mostly jumping the gun on fan theory words, and I didn't really keep that clear. So just to be fair, anytime I said the word blackmail, I meant lying on their resume. The blackmail is hyperbole. The lying on their resume was confirmed by said person on a kids show that should still be on Disney Plus. And if anybody wants to check that out, you should also pair that with the episode on the other Disney Plus show, where its narrative is all about said person's obsession with social media to the point that they never get work done, because that's supposed to make him relatable and quirky. Because he still does things the Marvel way. But anyway, I apologize because I kept saying blackmail and I meant lie. And I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
No. Yeah.
Before we get in trouble.
I was taken aback because I just made a joke about Silk, and then I didn't realize it was going to like cause you to get that upset, and I apologize for.
I didn't realize it. No, and we'll go into it because I was talking to Neil today because I actually had him go over what I wrote, which my thoughts are more like free process that I write to try to like formulate what I'm going to say and what point I want to make. And I was like, someone make sure that this isn't like going off the deep end because things are starting to click from this about how certain characters are treated.
Yeah.
That is still relevant to how characters are treated today in ASM and the connections there. So I just wanted, to make sure everything was fine. I was like, honestly, I didn't realize how a lot of my negative emotions are tied into Spider-Verse because, 2014 was a bad year for 2014, 2015 were the start of some pretty bad moments. And the parallels from that and this, and then just everything tied in is very, I guess, still raw. So that's fun. But we're going to try to stay chill as possible again and try to be as fair
as we
as
can.
possible. Which I think we were. We were. It was just my emotions were high.
I think that but it also reflects, into a certain extent, it reflects because I know there's a lot of people that they've discovered Mayday through this story, right?
They did. And I want to be fair to them, but I also like that's kind of the situation too, especially like if you haven't reread, you might just be going along and listening. And I hope you start from the beginning and actually hear the story to then get to this point, because I think that will also bring you a lot more clarity.
Yes.
Why,
because
we'll get into it because a large part of what people champion about this for May's character, say, oh, I fell in love with her character from this, comes from the issues we're talking about in this episode. And we'll talk. It's wrong. But yeah.
So there's like I said, there's going to be a lot we're going to get into throughout this episode. Once again, we're keeping the focus on Mayday, so we're not going to get into the nitty gritty of like the rest. Like we're going to go through the rest of the event, but like we're not going to talk about all the ancillary stuff that happened on top of it. We've covered that in other podcasts. The Ben and Kane stuff I covered on Clone Saga Chronicles, for example. So like, and I'm going to make some references to a certain podcast episode that still on Spotify, but I want to mention again. Also in our news section here that just to remind everybody, Tom and Pat are reteaming to do a Secret Wars miniseries that ties into the original. It was announced in San Diego. Order it now so you can get your copies today, because even though this was kind of alluded to in our interview that we did with the three of those guys, they couldn't talk about it at the time. So we know we mentioned it last episode, but be sure to order it at your favorite comic book shop to ensure that you get a copy, because not all places will carry it unless you ask them to hold it and order it for you. So put it on your pull list, support Tom and Ron. That's what we'll do. And I think
you can go ahead and pre-order it too on Comixology. So that way, in your digital, since, now there's no longer the Marvel app where things were easy and we have to deal with Comixology. Where you can't buy it. You can't buy it in the app. You got to buy it on the website, but you can't read it on the web browser. You got to read it on the app. That makes sense.
So
anyway.
real quick, I tried using Comixology. For whatever reason, it stopped accepting my digital redemption copies after.
It
did it? Is it for you too? Okay.
Yeah, no. It's an issue with Amazon. It's an issue with their back end. I don't know what's going on. It needs to get fixed though, but Marvel doesn't care.
Marvel.
Anything to get them to Marvel. Anything to get to Marvel Unlimited.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, it's anti-consumer and bah humbug, as I say when it comes to that. So
the mouse doing something anti-consumer. Say it ain't so.
The mouse.
It's not the mouse in this case. This is Amazon.
This is
Bezos.
I'm gonna blame them both anyways.
Yeah. This is one case. It's not the mouse's fault. It's not Mickey's fault. It's
the guy that made the suspicious looking rocket.
the very phallic looking rocket. Yes.
And thinks wearing a cowboy hat makes him tough.
that dude wouldn't know what a
Anyway.
cowboy is, so it bit him in the butt. Anyway, I was trying not
Okay.
to. All right, so we're going into spider history a little bit. I went back and listened to the old interview we did with Tom and Ron about 5 years ago on the network, which is available on Spotify, like I mentioned. So go check it out. Go find it. It's called Mayday Mondays is the other show that we did. There's some things that we will discuss as we go through the recap that Kelly's going to provide here in a minute. But I could do more on the history, but I really recommend if this is your first episode, go back and listen to the previous episodes. Kind of condenses everything down and explains the history of Spider-Verse as a concept. So, but to catch you up on the actual story, because, we're in the middle of the story right now. Mayday's home is destroyed by Deimos. In 982, Peter is killed on screen. MJ and Wes are implied to be dead as well in the story. We learned about the great web of life and destiny and how it's related to everyone. We're introduced to Otto as Spider-Man and his team. Peter Parker is introduced to his team. They go to a safe zone of an Earth that Peter never lost his Captain Universe powers. If you want to check out what the Captain Universe thing was all about, check out the latest episode of Sub Sema. Solus, the father of the Inheritors, kills the super duper Spidey, and then he takes Benji. Otto kills one of the Inheritors, and we find out that they can clone themselves. Kane, Jessica Drew, Ultimate Jessica Drew, and Ben Reilly of Earth 94 leave to go fight the good fight. Ben dies. Spoiler alert. Miles Morales teams up with Ultimate Spider-Man, voiced by Drake Bell. Other spiders are recruited, including the 1967 series Spider-Man, Cowboy Spider-Man, Peter Parkar, who is a sentient version of the Spider-Mobile, who suspiciously talks like Speed Buggy from the 1970s cartoon, because apparently Boomerang was playing at the time of the writing in the background. There's a bunch of tie-ins, so many tie-ins, that there are variants also of the Ultimate Spider-Man Web Warriors episodes that this was coming out around the same time. Notably, issue 14 of the we're covering tonight has the gender swap Petra Parker. It is not Mayday, even though at first we all thought, oh, that might be Mayday. It's not Mayday. It's just a gender swap Peter. So without further ado, that's caught everybody up. Kelly's going to give the recap of Spider-Verse Team Up.
Yeah. All right. So I do want to preface, because I realized in my breakdowns, I do sound very negative and mad. It is not about the creative team on this one. They did it beautifully, and I think that the intention was for me to be a little angry. But anyway, we'll go into it, and I just want to make sure that that's clear, because it does, for this to be a Tom and Ron and company issue, I do sound a lot more negative than I normally do, and I just want to make sure that that's a clear statement before I go into it. But Spider-Verse Team Up issue 3, released on January 21st, 2015, with a cover date of March 2015. Breakdown. So there's 2 stories in Spider-Verse Team Up 3, and while 2 other Spider-Girls are in the first one with Spider-Man, Mayday does not make an appearance, so we are not focusing on the first story at all. The second story, titled Bugged, is all about Spider-Girl and Uncle Ben together. Wait, that tagline sounds really bad out of context. Ew. So anyway, story, plot, and pencils by Tom DeFalco and Ron Friends. Finished art, Sal Buscema. Colors by Andrew Crossley. Assistant editor, Devin Lewis. And editor, Nick Lowe. We start with May, who has blue eyes on this beginning page, barreling into the group, Anya, Hobby, 616 Peter, and Mr. Porker, and she's trying to take charge and get the group ready to go so they can save her little brother. Mayday is absolutely beating herself up about this. She failed when it counted the most. She couldn't save her dad, her mom, but she's not about to fail Benny. She knows Deimos is planning to sacrifice him, a literal baby, so the fact no one wants to go save him is just beyond her. India and UK try to reason with her like she's completely off the handle and tells her to calm down, but Mayday actually seems a lot calmer than I would be in this situation. So they tell her that death awaits her in Loom World, the place that they took the baby. And you might, I don't know, want to save the child from death then? But anyway, I literally wrote, seriously, what is wrong with everyone else here but May? May rightfully calls these guys absolute phonies, because they are, and if they want to cower in a bunker, fine, she'll go alone. Anya calls her crazy, which again, these people call themselves heroes, and also foreshadowing on that one, ma'am. And Uncle Bunker, as I like to call him, the Uncle Ben from this world, but I call him Uncle Bunker, as I like to call him, tries to tell May she's asking for a suicide mission. But really, who wants to listen to a guy who retreated to a bunker over trying to save the world? Like, come on. May takes up her pinned up aggression out on the bunker hallways. Again, though still being pretty reserved in said anger, because if she wanted to, she could probably blow a hole through the walls. She does start to break down in her frustration, grief, and worry and punches the wall hard enough to damage a wall as Uncle Bunker asks her if basically kind of is asking her why she's wrecking his home. Which, dude, her home was burned to the damn ground like 24 hours ago, so piss off. Which when May explains this, Bunker tells her that she's not the only one hurting, which again, what the crap? Why is everyone acting like losing your home, your boyfriend, parents, and then having your brother kidnapped within like less than 24 hours is like just having the wrong coffee order? Like, this is maddening. So May is completely justified in her emotions here. The dismissiveness is downright anger inducing, and this isn't on the creative team for this story, which we'll go into if we haven't yet, which, I think we should go more into in our thought process. But just like, I just want to say that what this reminds me of, and I'm going to wait until after all of this, because I need to get through this breakdown as much as I really I don't want to finish this breakdown. This is insane. I hate everyone gaslighting Mayday in Spider-Verse so much. But Uncle Bunker asked May to talk to him about her family and if her dad was happy, which again, she just watched her dad and her entire world be destroyed in like less than 24 hours ago. And she feels like she didn't fight when she should have. She doesn't know, what possessed her to be so out of character in that moment, and she needs to feel her anger and her grief, and just asking her about happy moments isn't going to calm anybody down. So rightfully, Mayday tells Bunker to go to hell and lunges at him. They get into a tiff and an argument about what with great power there must also come great responsibility is all about. Uncle Ben reminding Mayday and the audience, and hell, maybe, this was also to remind a certain ASM writer and a still current ASM editor, that there's no guaranteed link between power and responsibility. Too many seem, even to this day, to focus on the power without any regard to their responsibility. Bunker admits he gave up and hid after his Peter died, but Mayday doesn't have a right to judge him. May still looking to kick him where it hurts after almost everyone has been dismissive to her this entire time in their weird culty kumbaya. Need I remind everyone about the "We're Your Family Now" line said by Spider-Ham in Spider-Verse Part 2? It's disgusting. And Mayday continues to remind Uncle Bunker how he's the last person on his earth because he didn't save it. Uncle Bunker is impressed or shocked by Mayday having impact webbing, and she touches on her Uncle Ben, but their spider sense cuts the scene and cuts the discussion, as it were, as the crack May put into the wall from her rage release has caused it to crack open, revealing a ton of mutant spiders. Wonderful. As they try to subdue it, May uses her stingers and her ability to magnetize the floor. Uncle Bunker asks her how come Mayday's the only one with that power, and she asks if she really is. Has anyone else tried? Mayday might be a teenager, but she does know that the key to any success is to try. They both patch up the wall, and Ben tells her that she caused this due to her temper tantrum, which again, dismissing and downplaying her intense trauma, grief, and fear. So, ew. Bunker tells her to forget about the Loom world and be safe here in this bunker on a world devoid of all human life besides him. The guy who keeps dismissing her pain and lives in utter fear. So May walks off, reminding Bunker that Benny is all she has left and she can't have a life without him. May does hope that there's an infinite number of alternative worlds out there, and maybe there's one, a 982B world, so to speak, that's out there where Mayday woke up to have wheat cakes with her parents and her baby brother. that's also who Mayday, our 982 May, which I know a lot of us still don't want to admit or agree that this is our May, but according to Marvel editorial, it is. But this is also who our Mayday, this Mayday, is going to be fighting for. She's going to be fighting for all those happy alternative 982s when she fights to get her brother back from Loom World. And she's going to kill Deimos. The end. So, Zach, what are your thoughts?
As I wrestle with an overgrown, lumbering oaf of a dog. So, my thoughts are, first of all, this was written by Tom and done by Tom and Ron and Sal. They were brought in specifically for this story. They were approached by Nick Lowe to do this. They were given the parameters. They've talked about this in a lot of interviews, but specifically, we talked about this in that interview that I mentioned earlier. So originally, the plan for this issue was to leave the bunker and have Mayday go and fight these, go to the house in Forest Hills and kind of face her. It's kind of see the Funhouse mirror version of what happened in this other universe. And they were told, no, they can't leave the bunker. That they had to, like, the parameters were very limited. So the other notable thing for this issue was
it's after rereading all of it and you're sitting here saying this and I'm less like, because we know what happens later.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
The other thing that's notable for this issue was introducing the bugs being in this world concept. As the plot had been written out, Tom and Ron pointed out that there wasn't a place that introduced these bugs as a concept at any point in their story structure. Nope. So they were able to write it in there. Apparently Nick Lowe was like, thank you, because we overlooked this.
Nick Lowe overlooking things? What? Sorry. I'm sorry.
So there was also a lot of the discussion from the community, and you just kind of referenced it in your recap of the way they wrote the character, considering that they were dealing with alternative worlds, that there would be a world where everything was the same as before, and that gives us that little bit of, quote, reasonable doubt as to our Mayday being the Mayday of this storyline and subsequent stories. It's led to many trying to dismiss this, and it's understandable. And I will talk a lot more about that next episode of a specific thing that was said and why the story was in Spider Island was structured the way it was. So
it was, and I do want to mention, and we'll talk about it when we're on Spider Island, but in Spider Island, I do believe May has brown eyes.
Yes.
Yes. And as we see her every other time in Spider-Verse, she does have brown eyes, but in this issue, they are blue.
Yeah. Which is, again, that's my thoughts are fairly short on this. They did a good job. It's well written. It's well structured. I mean, Tom DeFalco can put a lot in a 5-page story, or however many pages this was, or 10-page story, however many pages it was. They did a good job. And they wanted to provide that reasonable doubt. They wanted to be able to do that. And to Nick Lowe's credit, they gave them that ability to do so. And they kind of, we give Nick Lowe a lot of grief on this network for a lot of very things, and a lot of it's justified.
I'm going to be perfectly honest, and and we'll go into this towards the end too, because it's a large part of my discussion. But the issue that I have is there seems to be a lot of inaction when it comes to Mr. Lowe, especially on things where female characters are dismissed and treated as objects. And I think at this point, the inaction is almost just as offensive as the actual action. And I think if he was a responsible editor, he might want to actually look at that critically.
Yeah, there's a lot of the laissez-faire, hands-off editing that Nick Lowe is now known for. Let's be real. And it's really prevalent here. Basically, he lets the writers do whatever they want to do. And Wayland does not even like that either. So if you hear him in the background. And because of that, because of the way that he edits, you have situations like with Spencer. Spencer was able to do whatever he wanted. Slott was able to do whatever he wanted, and now we have Wells doing whatever he wanted. And so it's that double-edged sword with it. And instead of saying, okay, I am the shepherd of the characters, and I have to be a gatekeeper and say this idea does not work, it just doesn't feel like that Nick Lowe says no to a lot of things.
I think he says no to some things.
I mean,
yeah.
Other than marriages and Peter and Mary Jane being together.
Well, I mean, remember, he said everything had to stay in this bunker. I think that there are certain things that he will be told he has to do.
Right.
And say no to.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about it a little bit more. Yes, Neil.
Really quick. If I were a writer, I would actually appreciate like having a longer leash just to kind of go bonkers with ideas. But when it comes to actually executing those ideas, and more hands-on editor is needed to.
You need a response. You need someone who's responsible,
especially for these, I guess, line-wide crossovers, or office-wide crossovers, where you have multiple writers working on a project. We need coordination.
And we're going to get into that too a little bit more, Neil, because it kind of leads down a little bit further down in my notes about things that were said by Tom and Ron in that old interview that are absolutely pertinent here, and
they are.
And overall with this story. So Kelly, I'll let you get to your
yeah,
thoughts.
I do need to get into my thoughts because I'm very wordy in all of 11 pages of our notes. But yeah. So the thing that irks me here so much is this dismissive nature of May's whole situation from the damn get-go. Everyone is telling May she's so angry and she's so inappropriate. But put yourself in her shoes. And this is not even just this issue. Like, this is happening prior to that as well. Like, since the beginning, everyone's been dismissing her anger, which is disgusting to me. But it's here, but put yourself in May's shoes. She's just lost her family. These monsters who killed her family have also kidnapped her brother now. And these people who claim to be heroes, who claim to be there for her and have even told her that they were basically family, did absolutely nothing but pick lint from their belly buttons. May isn't being unreasonable. She's not being some vengeful, hateful thing. She's not some angry emo teenager having a temper tantrum. Everything is dismissing her trauma, her grief. They are gaslighting the heck out of her. A lot of what we see from the same editors today. You can listen to past episodes to hear me rightfully criticize Mr. Lowe, but it's very telling how we're talking about an issue from 2015, and the same could be said here applies to a particular death that happened this year in Amazing Spider-Man. I don't know why teen girls are being treated like this. I don't know why why it's kind of dismissive and it's painting them as either negative hellions or they die as martyrs so that grown adult men can sleep with their masks in these books that Lowe edits, but things have kind of gotten really alarmingly messed up and it's gross. Teenage girls are people who they're people. I mean, who shouldn't be sexualized. They have emotions. And their emotions shouldn't be dismissed. They shouldn't be cannon fodder to fridge in a story to move a marketing point forward. That's why Spider-Girl as a series was so important and struck so many. She mattered. A young girl that they could see themselves in as a hero, not as an object to ogle or an attention-hungry anger bomb. The bad guy for messing up the vibes, teenage girls, ew. Are women just in general that get treated like this about everything. And this boys club that Amazing Spider-Man editorial has turned into has become so toxic and dismissive of that. And rereading these has just proven that this has been this way for a very, very long time. I'm just tired and burned out and being reminded of how long women in Spider-Man have been painted since Nick Lowe has had his editorial tenure is really sad. I'm glad the writing here brings that forth very, very clearly. And how, when paired with the interviews and the knowledge that we have, it paints a picture about how structured some stories are with these characters that they have to be, like a bit of a tangent. Okay. I'm like, I have this is such word vomit on the page. But this is a bit of a tangent, but a thing that popped into my head when I wrote this. I'll never sit here and agree that Marvel never treated May with the same respect that they treat Gwen, because that's not the case. Circumstances were different. But later we'll see that Gwen and Cindy get to go to Loom World whenever they want. Who cares?
Yeah.
No one questions them, which I have a huge problem with story-wise. Because this is set first. This was published first. It is so disjointed and weird. But the thing with that, so the thing with that happening, like, yes, I could understand someone reading those 2 issues and going, see, they're letting Gwen do everything. Why is Gwen doing everything? This should have been a May story. And we'll touch base on that as well. But the thing is they do this to Gwen, like currently now in 2023, all the time. And this, Gwen gets the same crap that happened to May here and treatment, only this time the system is rigged so that way Gwen's story can't keep going forward. She gets maybe 6 to 10 issues and then she restarts. It never keeps going, where May constantly got to keep going because the fans mattered, and we actually fought for her. That cannot happen today. The system is completely different. It's completely rigged. And it's been this case since 2014. I would hate for Mayday to have to be restarted in today's Marvel world with the way everything's structured for a female character. And this is an example of this, because they're treating May here like they treat every other female character today. And like, it's not just this issue. It really isn't. Like, it's not, this issue's written beautifully, but it highlights on the way that she's treated from the beginning of the story.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is it's a bit of a response to, because Tom and Ron get the entire plot sent to them about, what's going where, yada yada, in case they need to reference things for continuity's sake. And it becomes this whole bit of like, okay, does this make sense for the character? And none of it does.
Well, I mean, we'll talk about this, like, story-wise, truly story-wise. You start this on May losing the most. She still, out of everybody, lost the most. She deserved to be the lead. She deserved to drive the story. Does she drive this story? It almost feels the entire time you check in with her, she's ready to go. She's ready for action. And she's being told no constantly. She's being dismissed. She's being told she's crazy. She's acting inappropriately. She's so angry. Why is she so angry? I don't know, man. Maybe less than, like, I think this whole thing technically takes place in 36 hours.
Yeah.
This is
hours.
Nuts.
Yeah.
It's nuts. And it's inappropriate.
Well,
and I mean, and also, we'll touch base on that too, like on just like, I guess, my stance on it. But it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's maddening, because then we'll see, like, not everybody's being treated the same.
No, there's a disproportionate, to me, talking about it in general, because I don't talk about it necessarily in the notes, but talking about this story in general, I wanted it to be a superior Spider-Man story, but I was told that I couldn't, so I'm having to shoehorn a bunch of superior Spider-Man nonsense into this story and have this dichotomy between Peter and Ock, and they're kind of the stars. Which, granted, okay, it's the book says Amazing Spider-Man, Peter should be the star of the book, but half the time he gets sidelined too. It seems like
he has the least, and he has the least to lose in this entire situation.
Yes. The stakes are the lowest.
Which, of course, I guess somebody could say, oh, but he was dating Cindy at the time. No,
they weren't dating.
They were just.
He was dating Anna Maria.
And
technically, they were not dating.
Take it from the Silk guy, okay? Like, they were not dating.
No. So, like I said, it does not make sense. It just really doesn't. You hinder, like, that's, when we talk about the shock and awe and our anger and the shock and awe and how it didn't matter, in part 1, this is what we mean.
Absolutely. Let's just go ahead and knock this rundown down.
Let's go. Yeah, let's finish our breakdown so we can kind of get into this discussion.
Because
my long monologue, as y'all call it.
Listen, there is times to pepper in thoughts, and then there is times to let the person speak, and that is what I mean by that monologue. So
we'll talk. Like I said, we'll talk, because I kind of had to do some inner therapy to figure out why I was so angry.
Yeah,
and I hopefully hit the nail on the head. Hopefully, I make everybody understand. It's really messed up.
Okay, so I'm going to be doing the rundowns for the rest of this. We're going to do the rundowns, and then we're going to give our general thoughts, because try to get through this. I am going to be a little snarky, so buckle up, Buttercup. All right. Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3, number 13, legacy numbering 746, I think. I don't remember. Spider-Verse Part 5, Spider-Man No More. Written by Dan Slott. Art by Giuseppe Camuncoli and Cam Smith, with Justin Ponsor on colors. This was released on January 21st, 2015, the same day that the previous issue that we just talked about came out, cover dated March of 2015. The issue opens on Loom World, where the rest of the Inheritors are telling Solus how much they had failed. Benji here is the right age, and for once here crying. He basically brushes this off and tells...
He's also blonde. Can we bring that up? Yeah, he's now blonde.
He's now blonde.
He's gone from a brunette to a redhead to a blonde in 36 hours.
He's the Carly Cooper of little boys getting hair changes.
This is true. This is poor Justin Ponsor. I mean, he's trying to keep up, but I don't think. I don't know how much direction he got. So basically, Solus brushes off all this quote unquote failure and tells everyone that the spiders are going to die. So buck up, Buttercup. Meanwhile, on Earth 3145, Peter is trying to figure out how to tell this Uncle Ben who's alive, and he tells his story. Basically, everything happens until the Green Goblin of Uncle Has-Been, aka the Emerald Elf, killed his May and Peter. He gives up after this and is approached by Ezekiel Sims and told to hunker down in the bunker, only to allow Otto Octavius to cause a nuclear catastrophe. Peter remarks that he got these scrolls from Jessica Drew hiding on Loom World, so this makes Silk feel bad. Her and Gwen decide, hey, we're going to take off and go to Loom World, and because plot. A brief conversation with Spider-Man India and Spider UK happens for like a page or two. Meanwhile, Otto thinks he can figure out the writing on the scroll himself, because Peter sees that Otto's computer from 2099 has Anna Maria Marconi's face, because that's not creepy at all. And Otto deduces that Peter isn't actually from earlier in the timeline, but rather later in the timeline where Peter actually wins. So, foreshadowing. Anya figures out that she can read the scrolls because the plot demanded it, and that they need the bride, aka Silk, the Scion, aka Benji, and the other, aka Kane. Peter suddenly sees that Silk wandered off, and we cut to Earth 802, where the last 3 issues of Scarlet Spider's miniseries have taken place. Ben is killed, and Kane gets mad and goes to Loom World because, he's mad that Ben dies, leaving Ultimate Jessica behind at Genix's cloning facility world thing. The Inheritors really get excited when Kane shows up because they can smell it. Mayday is like, y'all, my brother is on Loom World, and we need to get him back. Hello. Some of them stay behind to go off to their adventure for the first story of Spider-Man Team Up number 3. Kane then gets a call from Peter and basically tells Kane to stand down, but Kane says basically to F off and decides to become the other. Kane, as the other, kills Solus. Kane is then killed in response. The girls, Silk, Jessica, and Gwen, are trying to sneak around and get caught up with the remaining Inheritors. Cut back to the bunker, and we have Mayday saying, hey, what are we waiting for? And Peter has to have this Uncle Has-Been come with him, and then they get a pep talk by Otto, quote unquote, and he tries to sneak away by saying the final line, which Peter says, Spider Friends, go for it, because we didn't kill off the Spider Friends 2 months ago. The end. ASM 14, Spider-Verse Part 6 is titled Web Warriors. This time they have Oliver Capiel is along for the ride, as well as Giuseppe Camuncoli, Way Vaughn, Grom Badger, and Cam Smith and Liv Sayer on the inks. Justin Ponsor is on the colors. We have Gwen in danger with goblins, and Peter starts to freak out And Gwen, who is unmasked between issues, finishes off the goblins, and Mayday is like, enough. They have their brother and Silk. They might also have Kane, and this ritual might be going on. So, hey, let's, quit, protecting Spider-Gwen and actually start, moving this plot along. Apparently, they have the crystal of solace, and he will rise again. Moreland starts the ceremony and tells the brothers to keep the spiders at bay. Starting with Silk, he slices her hand open. Miles and company show up, and Ultimate Jessica Drew finds Kane's costume. She says no more men or women have to die today, but pigs apparently are fair game because we have to have a weird joke in a really serious conversation, even though Ham tried to clarify. Poor Ham. Silk was captured, and she's bound by the webbing. Her hand is cut, blood flows. It looks like Benji, who is now a baby again, is about to get sliced open. Peter saves Benji, and him and Otto attack. Diamos is his, but he gets is also attacked, but he gets taken out. This opens up Mayday to start attacking. Moreland has been avoiding the 616 and Peter and asks for some help. Uncle Has-Been teleports away. Karn suddenly returns. That side mission from Team Up number 3 coming into play. Moreland tries to resume, but the web is starting to heal. Moreland goes to kill Benji, but in fact, it's not Benji. It's a naked Spider-Ham, things that I don't think any of us ever wanted to see. Turns out Uncle Has-Been has teleported Benji all the way home. He makes a little Three Little Piggies reference. Spider-Ham does, explaining. Peter says that everything is going to his plan. 2099 in Steampunk. Aunt May show up with the repair to Leopard on. Mayday grabs the crystal from Diamos and learns that it's his father in the palm of her hands. So is she going to, have her revenge story or not? Otto then decides to kill the Master Weaver, and everybody starts freaking out. This causes Mayday to snap out of her vengeance tour, and she unmasks to proclaim that she is the daughter of Spider-Man. Because she is that, she will not destroy the crystal. Moreland starts to attack Peter, and Peter opens the portal to Earth 3145. Moreland is shocked, thinking that Peter wouldn't actually kill him, because he said it multiple times. And he points out that the shelter is nearby, and that will keep them alive. Cindy then saves his ass. The rest of the inheritors are thrown into the place. Mayday then throws the crystal to have Deimos chase it. So much for not destroying the crystal, possibly. Kind of making her contradict herself. Ham then tells Mayday how proud her dad would be of her. And we have Cindy and Peter holding hands to end the issue.
Can we put Peter Porker in jail, please?
Peter Porker
They
in jail?
weren't dating.
I need Spider Ham to go to jail. He's terribly creepy.
He's trying. I get it.
He was also he was also naked.
Yeah, why is he naked? Man, I didn't need a naked Spider-Man.
He wanted to pretend to be a baby.
But that
we'll talk. It's very confusing.
It's very, and the artwork does not help. And look, Oliver Copiel has done some great artwork over the years.
When Moreland said he had a good left hoof, my brain did not go to he punched him.
Oh boy. Anyway, so Amazing
He needs to go to jail.
Go to jail. Go directly to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. All right. Amazing Spider-Man 15, Spider-Verse, Epilogue. Slots the writer. Cam Cully is on pencils. Cam Smith and Roberto Pergoi is on inks. Justin Ponsor returns on colors. Our issue opens with Spider UK opening a portal to Earth 982. Mayday is trying to apologize to Earth 616 Peter about her outburst towards him earlier, apparently. And Peter brushes it off, acknowledging that she's been through the biggest ringer and that she didn't let it break her. And she's become one of the most spectacular people he knows. He tells her to go home, and her brother's waiting for her. Uncle Has-Been is there, and he tells her that there were two people who refused to let go of the little guy. MJ and Wes are alive. Hooray! She wonders if there's any way that Peter is alive, and we learned that he did in fact die. I mean, we saw the body ultimately, unfortunately. So Ben asks if there's any way he can stay and be something that no Ben Parker has ever been, a grandfather. Mayday is suddenly cool with it, and we learn that what did survive the fire, her dad's suit. Quote, "My name is Mayday Parker, and today my story begins anew. From this moment on, I am Spider-Woman." Excuse me. I had to make a morphing sound. I hate that. I hate that statement. Anyway, Reader's Digest of the rest of the issue. Otto tries to destroy this is not in a particular order. I just started listing things off.
I mean, you really don't have to go through it if you don't want to.
Nah,
it doesn't matter.
They all go home. The end.
Yeah, they go home. They don't get lasting, damaging impacts to their world.
That's
The
true.
end.
Otto, I'll just go ahead and do it. It's fine. It's
Yeah,
fine. For
fine.
completionist's sake. Otto tries to destroy the web of life in a rage because he figured out he loses. Turns out that Karn is the master weaver, and he takes on his role on again of sort of Captain Britain, aka Spidey UK, sees that his world has in fact been destroyed thanks to Secret Wars 3, the one that no one asked for. Peter beats Superior and sends him back to the time from which he came, which was apparently Superior Spider-Man number 19, thanks to the little editor's box. We learn that the Inheritors are not in fact dead. We saw the Bugs first in Spider-Verse team up thanks to Tom and Ron asking where that came from in the original script. No, seriously, they saw that in the overall original script and said, hey, where did you introduce these bugs in? Oh, no, thank you for pointing it out. That really helps us. Literally, Tom and Ron bailed them out in a bind that they themselves created. Kane isn't dead again. Billy Braddock and Aranya stay up to set up Secret Wars Spider-Verse. Peter swings off to start working on Parker Industries again. Silk goes to work at Fact Channel. Jess leaves to go do something. I don't remember. Peter then stops a mugging and the issue ends. And if you're reading the hardcover, it collects the next 3 issues of the volume unless you count the spiral issues, which go on for 5 more issues. It's really weird how they... If you're reading it on Marvel Unlimited, you're going, why is the numbering the way it is? Just pay no mind. The end. Kelly, I'm going to shut up for a minute.
Yeah, so oh boy. I'm over it. So anyway, so here's some random thoughts while reading these issues before I go into my big thing. On issue 13, why is Benji blonde now? Oh, Peter's allowed to be emotional over Uncle Bunker, but May is having a temper tantrum. All right. And, it's also okay for Silk and Spider-Gwen to go to Loom World because Jessica willingly took a broken teleporter, and that's guilt-tripping Cindy just so bad. But oh, hell no. The one who needs to save her baby brother is overreacting. Also, like, she wouldn't just see or notice them leaving and demand to go. Yuck. All right. So then in issue 14, Benji is now de-aged again and has a tuft of blonde hair again. May does have brown eyes again in this issue, and apparently it's only after seeing Otto kill the web weaver does she seemingly come back to her senses. But she's been acting sane this whole damn time. It's actually far more insane and out of character to just snap all back together, after all this intense pain and trauma the last 36, 48 hours, to magically be healed, all because who the hell would want to be like Otto? Which, saying that out loud, fair, I wouldn't want to be Otto either, but the abrupt change is very jarring and clunky. And then in issue 15, well, it's all very weird, to be fair. Did Normie buy Aunt Anna's old house next door to let everyone hide out so MJ could just put a Spider-Man costume in the hallway cupboard? No real thought to this part of the story was given here. Just, we need to, basically shoehorn this in because someone somewhere said, this needed to happen, and clearly was still mad Mayday had not become Spider-Woman yet. And so they just make her Spider-Woman in the most shoehorned way possible because F you, Spider-Girl fandom. But I digress. Here's my thing after reading this and rereading this, and even acknowledged, and it's even acknowledged in the story, yet nothing is done with it. This story starts with one character losing the absolute most and could easily lead this story with this narrative consistently. But throw it all out the window for a random guy who just gets sucked in with nothing to lose in this, really. Peter has no skin in this game, no random, just no. But he has to be the leader and he has to be the chosen one because the writers said so. I just want to make it clear how, as we are all reading this, it's simple to see that the better story, the higher stakes that really banked on the shock value of destroying May's life was with May. But she's relegated to being a NPC and a cardboard cutout of a character rather than using her narrative to build an emotionally intelligent and compelling story. You end May's story with her getting a new suit, or Peter's old suit, but getting a new suit, telling her she's a woman now after all of this trauma. Something that I could, and honestly, screw it, will equate to what a lot of teenage girls deal with here when it comes to not supporting them when the male gaze forces them to grow up. You know, we constantly get, there's tons of stories from women where they will tell you that as young as 13, 14, they had people assault them, harass them, grope them at a concert, follow them home from the movies, a teacher from high school telling them that they had a nice ass or a nice rack, that lead singer from the concert offering them VIP passes for their friends if they'll hang with them in their trailer. Instead of pushing back on the narrative and telling these grown adults that, who do this to teenagers are wrong, you have movies and pop culture glorifying it and telling these girls that they should only be so lucky to have that attention and to grow up quickly so they can perform and serve these kinds of people. These grown adults who objectify and defile the innocence of a teenage girl. That's what this story felt like it was doing to Mayday to me by giving her Spider Woman at the end. Call me crazy, dismiss me like everyone did to Mayday. Maybe I'm overreaching a bit, but hear me out. I grew up in a time where the sexy teen was a punchline, yet something girls were supposed to strive to be. How it was normalized that a grown man would just lust over a child, and it was like it was the child's fault. She might look like a grown woman or what they want a grown woman to look like. So it's got to be her fault, right? It's not the adult losers that are lusting over her, i.e., an example. Look at Britney Spears. Think about her being 16, 17 on her first Rolling Stone cover. You forgot she started her career at 15, 16 years old, out the gate, dressed like that, didn't you? Or that the fashion was also pandered and pushed on other girls even younger than that. In fairness, it's still being done today. Look at your most popular celebs and influencers. Spider-Girl was one of those stories and one of those characters that didn't play to that disgusting male gaze narrative, and it didn't show that part of pop culture from that time. It was a safe place for young girls. It was a safe place for me. I was a kid and a teen who grew up in the height of that, and to be frank, it was pushed on me and other girls to grow up so quickly. And that had a damaging effect on my generation, even to this day. Me Too isn't just flashy smoke. It's not just a buzzword. See, I never wanted to grow up and deal with those looks or those people, and I felt safe in my comic bubble. But by 2014, I had already passed, being 18, 19 years old, who was primed to be taken advantage of and abused by how pop culture groomed us, forcing us to be women when really we're just still girls. And I was dealing, as I do today, with that trauma and that abuse, that abuse gave me. So to show a character who I loved and saw myself in her and seeing her be ripped away from her world, be relegated to being told to stand around and wait by men, gaslighting her pain and trauma and the very real threats that, these very real threats and fear she had, to then just let other characters do whatever is insulting. These men who would also not take a stand to help minimize the trauma, despite the fact that they promised her that they'd protect her and help her just moments before, just panels before. Even some characters claiming she's family to them. It was maddening to see someone at that someone at Marvel thought this was all justified for giving her the Spider-Woman title. Claiming that all this gaslighting and this trauma that May goes through is all okay in the end because now she's proven herself to be a woman. It hit a little close to home and not in the way I think they wanted it to. Even though she's still just 16, she's a woman now. I want that to really sink in on how icky that feels. It's not empowering. It's not emboldening. It's sexist, it's objectifying, it's minimizing and diminishing a character's legacy for what exactly? At 24, I wanted May protected from the things I went through, that I was currently going through and dealing with in 2015. She protected Mayday, and her story protected me as long as she could in a way that these stories were there for me growing up, showing me someone who wasn't exploited and treated like an object, like the way women, teen girls seem to be in most media even to this day. May wasn't protected, and in some ways it made me feel like I failed her as a fan. The sting that this has had on me is long gone, mostly. The story does seem to invoke a kind of traumatic response out of me. The story was rough. It broke our little 982 world into tiny pieces, and now we get to see how other people try to glue it back together. Like a lot of people like me have to do to actually reclaim ourselves after our own trauma. While, there still could be an amazing story here in Mayday reclaiming her name and her narrative, and I think there still is a good story here, but with the current direction and some editors still hanging around being excited to fridge another teenage girl, another teenage character, this story will never be told appropriately. Not without someone who cares, and not without Tom, Ron, and everyone else who wrote and defined Spider-Girl. And that's my monologue, Zach. Done.
I have the unfortunate task of having to follow that up. And I think what she says is wonderfully said, and it's things that need to be said. And I want to thank you, Kelly, for sharing that here. I know it's not easy to pour your heart out like that, but that is a really raw thing. There's parts of this I cannot identify with what Kelly's saying here, being simply a male. But I think my perspective has changed over the years, and my thoughts aren't exactly the same as they were in 2015 because I wasn't a dad of a little girl, and Gabby wasn't born yet. Like literally, as this was coming out, Gabby was in the oven cooking. When I listened to the episode that Tom and Ron we did with Tom and Ron on Mayday Mondays, while we were out of respect for Gerard, we tried not to mention it. But it's such a big deal to mention it in these particular contexts because of it. There's questions in that episode that directly reference what we're talking about here. Go find it on Spotify. I encourage you all to listen to it because it's a raw interview, and it encapsulates a lot of not only Tom and Ron's feelings, but the feelings of two guys who love this world. And in my case, a guy who was at the forefront of trying to show the world what it could be. They brought us back to the fact that in Spider-Girl 75, we were supposed to have Mayday transition from being Spider-Girl to being Spider-Woman. At the 11th hour, it wasn't just going to be the black costume debuting. It was going to be the debut of a new direction for the title. The 11th hour, Marvel backtracked, given that there was an outcry online. The fans weren't happy, and even casual fans weren't happy. We have discussed in great detail the issues that occurred when they foisted upon readers Aranya's new name. They also brought up a point that I will try to encapsulate here. That there is a difference between comics being a craft and comics being an art form. A craft means you have to develop it, that you have to let the characters drive the stories, not the plot driving the characters. And for some one-off or Elseworlds, you can explore the plot driving the characters. But if you're writing a sequential story that the baton is being passed to you, you have the responsibility of trying to make the characters make sense. That isn't what happened here. And throughout most of Slot's run, it didn't happen there. There's this fanboy belief that darkness is good, that light is boring. It has been done. Watchmen, is the greatest thing ever. Dark Knight Returns was awesome. And sure, those stories are fun in a vacuum. But think about what happened here. You took characters that were fun and represented joy, such as the Spider Friends, and killed them off for shock value. Fans of Spider-Man Unlimited, the same. And trust me, I've learned over the last couple of years that cartoon has a fan base. And here in Earth 982, the classic spirit of the Marvel universe of yesteryear was represented by what was going on the page, and that spirit was taken down for two reasons. Mayday needs to go through some stuff, and we need to make her interesting. We have to make her conform to our darkness that we've infected the rest of the Marvel universes with. She's going to zig instead of zag. The thoughts I will be expressing here at this point are my own thoughts. They're my own. They don't reflect anyone else's. But I have wondered over the years if the success of the digest bred a tinge of jealousy in other people. Spider-Girl was making a bunch of money until Scholastic got greedy and killed the vibes. Spider-Girl, once in the hands of the mass market, it was as it was always intended to be sold. The concept was proven. Kelly McDaniel was part of that proof of concept.
Technically, I was buying the ploppies, but
yes,
I was young. I was young. I was very.
You're the
young.
target audience.
Yeah,
and it getting out there for a lot of girls that didn't necessarily go to comic shops with their dad like you did. That's what I mean. Spider-Girl fans rallying were the spiritual successors of the 60s Merry Marvel Marching Society, the bullpen myth, and everything that was good and lionized about classic Marvel. And then this damn insistence in making her into a Spider-Woman is the freaking antithesis of what the character was. Spider-Woman as a name has the stink of death, as Tom once put it. Marvel feels like they have to break the toys instead of finding new avenues. It's lazy, it's overdone, and it took away what was unique about this universe. And Kelly brings up that sinister implication that we have to have her be Spider-Woman because we demanded it. Nobody that I knew in the Spider-Girl community ever demanded that she grow up and become Spider-Woman.
Well, and I've touched on this. There is a certain editor that I believe is still at Marvel.
Yes.
Is he not? Yeah. That has on his own personal blog been very upset with Spider-Girl fans for not liking a particular issue that was guest written and drawn, where a 15-year-old, because it was before her 16th birthday, I believe. Yeah. So she's 15. She's in the shower, and it's all steamy around the important areas, but it's a very long, drawn-out page of panels of her in the shower. And I believe it's like 3 panels on the page, right?
Yes.
It's a lot. Like, I mean, it's for this to be a young woman. I still find that icky. I think, I mean, honestly, just that alone should be reason enough to dismiss that issue. It's inappropriate. But you have people that are up at the top still that think we're too harsh on stuff like that. And it makes you wonder, okay, well, what do you want? Why do you want her to be Spider-Woman so bad? Is it because you want to feel justified in your lust over this fictional character? You want to be able to do these boom animatics to make me think the wrong thing, to quote Bare Naked Ladies? What is
I understand.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, what is the point? I don't. And then to traumatize her to this extent and go, see, you've gone through all this extreme trauma, you're a woman now, is that's what I meant by sinister. Because I'm glad that you touched base, but like, I just want to make sure that's clear that that's what I mean. Like, I really don't think anybody on the creative team, like, I don't think Slot's intention by doing this, and for all we know, this could have been something that got forced on them to do.
Right.
But like, I don't think Slot's intention was to go, oh, see, now that she's a woman, you can be disgusting with her. I don't think that was the case, but the case is still, you're basically stating that someone has to go through really traumatic things to grow up, and I don't think that that's the right story we need to tell.
And look, I can understand wanting to watch Mayday grow up and become 17, 18, 19 years old, go to college, things like that. I can understand people wanting to see that happen, but this is not the story that should have been the trigger to make her into Spider-Woman. She's not, and they tried doing this with Gwen too. Let's not, I mean, every time Gwen showed up, she was always listed as Spider-Woman of Earth 65. Even though they never marketed her as Spider-Woman, hardly ever. All the time it was Spider-Gwen. Well, if the name is so great, why are we doing the marketing as it is?
The name is only great for Jessica.
Yes. Because I mean, they removed the name from Julia. So Maddie Franklin, they tried doing Spider-Woman, which was a little weird and a little disgusting. I'm not gonna lie, especially with the way Burn is. And we could go in a whole hour into that.
I actually posted about that in the chat.
I saw.
Yeah, the private chat.
Oh no, I put that in the group. I put that in the stream chat.
Good.
Listen, I know we got like Marcy and Professor, and they are fans of Maddie, and I love y'all. I do, genuinely. But this was not the story. And I think why we're saying it this way and why we're analyzing it this way is to try to explain to those people that came in with this story, hey, this doesn't work. Because I'll be honest, I didn't do a good job as a fan at the time when this was coming out. I don't feel we did an adequate enough job. We just leaned into the outrage, and because it was very raw and very real and happening at the time. But now with the beauty of hindsight, we can sit there and say, okay, this is why we were outraged. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So like,
well, I think all of us were angry. All of us were shocked.
Yes.
And it took a lot. And I mean, and that's kind of the thing is like, I always try to not think about things in anger. And I think I did a lot better this time than last episode. But the issue at hand is like, there is a lot to be angry about. I know that this was a lot of people's first introduction to Mayday, but this is not Mayday. And I think we've made that really clear. Like the amount of time she sits there and she keeps saying, yeah, I want to kill, I'm going to kill them. I'm going to kill them. I'm going to kill them. This is my thing. Even after all of this, because that was so out of character. But even now it's like, okay, I get it. I get how traumatized she was. I get the fear. I get the grief. I get everything. However, obviously glad she didn't do it. But the way that they make her recognize that was her grief and her anger talking is so anticlimactic, to say the least.
Yeah. In my brain, I'm not gonna lie, I think of like the spirit of Aunt May that we saw at the end of Amazing. You know, if this was written with continuity in mind, I could see the spirit of Aunt May going, listen, I understand you're mad. And that internal monologue, had there been more to her part of the story, and again, this kind of goes into my next point that I was going to make in my notes. At the end of the day, what the story proves is you can have an idea and it can be fun and it can be great, but does it work as a Spider-Man idea or a Spider-Girl story? Can it be a good story, or will it collapse on its weight of how much you cram in? This concept succeeds in other media by precisely doing and going against what they did here. Proof that some ideas can be done well, but if they're character driven instead of plot driven, that's a difference. There's a great example in the MCU of the Civil War. The comics are not good, but the MCU movie is strong because it's far more character driven. And at the end of the day, I don't blame the segment of the fan base that says Spider-Girl ended with the end, because that gave us a rare thing in comics, an ending to a story. There is a reason that the guys wrote the team up story the way they did. It was to give us hope after this darkness took over, to give us that reasonable doubt, to try to say this is wrong, but in a respectful and tactful way. And I'm aware that many people found the character through this story. And what we are doing here is not to dump on it or for being a gateway, but to show that just because they bring a fan favorite in doesn't mean that your favorite will be treated with respect. And that is the end of my monologue. You know, as a Ben Reilly fan, I mean, that's proof positive over the last several years. You know, sometimes you get that monkey's paw.
We really need to ask Nick Lowe what did Ben Reilly do to him? We really do. We really do.
He didn't Baja Blast hard enough.
Oh, you know, and
didn't get the Doritos Locos Tacos from Taco Bell.
Oh no,
dude.
No. Ben Reilly was working at the Taco Bell and made his order wrong. That's what happened.
Into the psycho. He goes to Nick Lowe and goes, "Here's your psychoreactive goo, Mr. Lowe."
That was one of Ben Reilly's odd jobs when he came back.
He worked at Taco Bell.
He worked at Taco Bell.
He was working with Wonder Woman.
Oh boy. Oh man. Like
it's 11.
It's and it's funny because I'm seeing in the comments like Professor Onsor is like, okay, when you guys put it that way, I understand now. And I hope that there's so many people that see that and kind of, and I hope we've done our job in that regard.
Exactly. And I'm, like I said, I know I flew off the handle in part 1 because things were shocking and upsetting, and apparently still very shocking and upsetting.
Ow, the edge.
And even in this, where things just fizzle out and get shoehorned to put a placement, I'll put it in. Spider-Verse sucks.
Spider-Verse had all the potential in the world as a concept. But even
Bad
when
execution.
when
in a multimedia sense, Spider-Verse is perfect to just create toys. But the problem is that Slott made the toys, or he co-opted the toys, is a better way of putting it.
Well,
And
put
then
it this way, this wasn't like I don't care what Slott says. This wasn't his idea. Okay? No, this
Mhm.
came straight down from marketing saying, "Hey, we've got an idea for a summer blockbuster. Let's do it." And they brought the team together and Slott was writing ASM.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not saying that, the ideas that they came up with, because there's good bones. I've stated this. There is good bones
Yeah.
in the story.
Yeah.
The issue at hand is things didn't get the appropriate attention, things weren't cleaned up, and quite frankly, they were told to put in as many Spider-Man as possible, so IP. So they could make those toys. So they could do something with it at one point,
Yeah.
which of course
Well,
it turned into be good IP. It was a good idea marketing-wise, bad execution, and this is why you shouldn't let marketing dictate what you write.
And that's kind of where I was going with that,
I
was
know.
that where like the movie Spider-Verse succeeds is that it focuses on one character, and it develops around that main character, and like through two others, and then three kind of gimmick characters for comedy. The problem with Spider-Verse, aside from Mayday's arc, which is an entire beast unto itself, is that it has like 12 different spider people it wants to focus on, and they're kind of all fighting for attention and page time. And Mayday, unfortunately, is one of those characters.
Unfortunately, but this is my thing. If, as we know, focusing on a main thing, like the movie had Miles, if we had mainly focused on Mayday and her story, because she had the most to lose, and she did lose the most, that she didn't get back immediately, that would have made a far more compelling story. It would have been far more emotionally intelligent. The character would have pushed this story forward. She was the only character that really could have pushed this forward, and yet we get Otto in Peter's body and 616 Peter having a dick measuring contest.
Yeah, so that's what I was about to say. You could have cut this entire thing in half. Half of the story is just Peter and Otto like yanking each other's chains, hoping to gain control of the narrative.
Which is odd, because you just literally, not even 6 months prior, had just done
brought him back. Yeah,
you just brought up so again, it's Slott was so devoted to his original concept of the superior Spider-Man leading everything in, and it collapsing, and and them having to push things back for narrative's sake. I mean, because we talked about it, the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon tying into this whole Web Warriors thing, and then trying to shove it in to where everything's coming out at the same time. Like,
and Marcy brings up a good point that Silk is a fun character. Okay, not in this story. In this story, she's awful, but overall, good character. But she doesn't really contribute a whole lot to the story aside from moving the plot.
She contributes so much, by breaking multiple multiverse wristbands and also being the bride, because there's no implications to that at all.
Hello, bride. Sorry.
See, and that's a whole other situation, which of course I said in part 1. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of weird things here, and I think ultimately we're just going to be winding up talking in a circle.
The story is fat. The story is fat. Some of it.
Exactly.
The story is the short form equivalent of what the worst parts of like the Clone Saga are.
It's a first draft, and it should have been edited heavily.
To me, if you had stripped it down to like 6 characters, like what we saw Sony do, right? You had 6 characters. That's somewhat manageable, and even the most recent film kind of stripped things down to like 4 or 5 characters, 6 characters, and then the rest of them kind of show up at the end, right? It's very difficult to write a story in this scope or scale. You look at guys like Marv Wolfman and Jeff Johns that have done these big type of epic stories. Not everybody can do that, and it's not Slott's strong suit. Never has been. And so to ask him to try to do this story the justice that it would deserve is kind of setting some people up to fail. And unfortunately, I have I mean, we've seen with Last Hero Standing and Last Planet Standing in the MC2 that certain writers can handle these type of events, but Slot's not one of them. Say what you will. And so at the end of the day, I mean, we can kind of, like Kelly said, we can talk in circles. We can go another hour trying to talk our way through this story.
I mean, it's just gonna keep going over and over and over again.
Yeah,
and
and
so
we're gonna
honestly, I think this is my thing. We've done this. We've gotten over it. We finished it. We've expressed ourselves, and now it's time, as I stated, to pick up these pieces and move forward and see what other writers do with May in trying to heal what was broken here.
Yeah. And again, what I encourage people, because we got some people asking some questions in the chat. Not only listen to the breakdowns that we do, but go and read the books as we talk about them, because we gloss over because there's so much crap in this story.
Oh, for this one, yeah. Like I'll put it this way. We've done a really great job getting really detailed in our breakdowns when it comes to Mayday. But this story is a lot bigger than just Mayday. And so, yes, we glanced over a lot. We did not really pay a whole lot of attention of, the totem mystical crap that was going on, because we focused our story on May. And yeah, just definitely read, go back and read with,
Normally we try not to give people homework, but this case is probably best to do.
Well, this is also why this sucks. So again, let's move forward. Let's move on. So I don't think we had any emails. I didn't see any when I last checked. Do we have any reviews or voicemails or anything at all?
No voicemails. And no reviews, because I've been checking the reviews and we have not had any recently. So
okay, so I do see that we've got 2 starred comments. Are those questions, Neil?
Yeah. Well, they're not questions. Well, one of them's a question, one of them's a statement.
Oh, okay.
Marcy says, honestly, they should have either recruited May before the Inheritors got to her world, or they should have had more characters act how May is. Not incorrect.
No, agreed. It's all, again, story had bones, but story was in first draft and somehow got published.
And I think if going off of Morris's suggestion that having all the characters act like May is, like having all these spider characters act like not necessarily irrational, but like on their own.
No,
like,
but that's my thing. They all should be angry. They all should be wanting to jump into the action. And this is what I still don't fully understand. Why is it? It's like literally May goes, "Oh my God, we got to go get my brother. They stole my brother. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. We got to go. We got to go. We got to go." And it's all very justifiable and and they treat her like she's completely irrational. Then Cindy goes, "Oh my God, I broke my
I chipped a nail in Loom World.
I broke my wristband. Jessica, will you switch with me? Oh no, Jessica's now stuck. I feel guilty. We gotta go."
I chipped a nail in Loom World.
Even
Peter,
Jessica, and this is my thing. Even Jessica, when they came in, was like, "Dude, what the crap? I don't need saving. I've got this." Why did you what? Like check my Wikipedia, and
so they can have a tie-in.
And some of the lines
are tie-in, but that's what my thing though is why? What, like? It's very nonsensical on what got justified and what didn't, and it doesn't make sense to me.
And honestly, there's 20 issues to this like 3-month-long story, and it's just bloated. And literally, we only covered the main
issues
story and the one issue that has Common Ron doing it.
We did not go into the side stories at all. But let's get to the last question and then we can wrap up.
So Professor Escanor asks, do you feel the reason May and Kamala were treated this way is because Marvel doesn't feel like that's demographic who cares for the books?
Yes, I actually truly 100% believe Nick Lowe thinks girls should not read comic books that feature Spider-Man.
It's a weird contradiction because Marvel has consistently, I don't want to say dumped money, but they've consistently advertised as like, this is the new generation, the new demographics of girl comic readers. And yet they continually make decisions that alienate and isolate that same female and person of color demographic from wanting to read comics.
I'll put it this way. They treat someone like me like the unicorn. I'm the one that's so different. I grew up going to a comic book shop. I grew up reading comics. I'm so strange and different. I'm that maniacal pixie dream girl. Guess what? Not the only one. It's a very prevalent and big community, especially on Twitter and on social media, in reviewing comic books. Females run the world, to quote Beyonce. But seriously,
Yes.
but no, but a large part of the economy. So I'll put it this way: Disney tapped into the teenage girl economy a long time ago, and realized that, you know, if you can get teen girls to buy something, you make money. Think about K-pop. Think about the teenage girls that are super big into K-pop. They make money, global money. I understand Marvel, you know, quote unquote, said they tried, but they never fully marketed it appropriately. The issue at hand is that they feel like things need to be different and pandered to, like these teenage girls need to be pandered to in an almost dismissive and inappropriate way, versus, yeah, the way Spider-Girl was marketed was amazing. It was just back in that 90s, nobody had the budget of marketing that Marvel does now, which is why Gwen does resonate a little bit more.
Well,
and you know, there wasn't social media, and so there, you know, there's a little bit difference there. But the thing is like those were good bones. If they had kept at it, they would have something amazing. But instead, they consistently were dismissive. They consistently bullied, and I'm gonna say they bullied. You have a couple of creators that still actively bully girls. Comicsgate is a thing. Gamersgate is a thing. It's a serious situation. You treat everything like a boys' club when it's not a boys' club, and you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. You should be able to work together and create a safe space, but you don't.
And I wanted to touch on Kamala because it was a May and Kamala question, but
Yeah.
I think Marvel accidentally struck gold with Kamala because it was a different book, and then progressively they've gone, oh wait, no, we didn't want this demographic, we want the straight white guys to buy Miss Marvel, and so they progressively, oh sorry,
no, that, I mean, and it makes the point, and that's my thing, is that like anytime we get anything of substance and of like an amazing story, somehow, some way, and somehow Nick Lowe is involved when it happens, things go back to this weird situation that just doesn't work.
Yeah, like Miss Marvel has gone from a character struggling with their religion and identity in, you know,
and where they
Americana,
yeah,
into being just another generic X character who's in a generic Cape book.
And look, there's a lot of I think the similarities between Kamala and Mayday right now is that there's just profound disappointment because of the amount of potential that exists as concepts that are in the hands of frankly the wrong people. And I'll be honest, Nick Lowe has been Spider editor now for over a decade.
I want him to find something he actually has a passion in.
Well, I'm ready.
She-Hulk. He's doing good on She-Hulk. Let him go do that.
Frankly, you know, the fact that Brevoort hasn't retired yet is also kind of, you know,
I posted in our private chat that Brevoort is taking over the X-Men office from Jordan D. White, which is not good.
No, it's not good. We shouldn't say the rest of the conversation. But just know that I will have as much outrage over a death or inappropriateness as I have with Kamala.
Emma Frost was too much of a girl boss. We should kill her off for sales.
And
well,
again,
I don't like Emma Frost, but I will support her if she gets fridged, because that would be really funny. Actually, no.
Anyway. Would she get fridged or would she get put in the icebox? Sorry.
She gets put in the jewelry cabinet.
Anyway. Anyway. We're gonna go into if that is the end of our questions, where I'm gonna go into the next episode.
Feel free to leave any more lingering questions that are actually pertinent.
Actually, yes. Anything that is actually pertinent, we will answer. Other things that may or may not apply at this time. We will answer at a later date if it is appropriate. But next episode, Spider Island. It's going to be very short and sweet. I'm still trying to figure out the breakdown for it, since honestly, it's actually just one issue and should be broken down and read as such. But since it's a defined kind of like the Spider Island is this defined break that I don't want to include it into Web Warriors. So it's getting its own episode. So it should be short and sweet and awesome. I'll probably do the breakdowns if you will do the history on it.
Yeah, 'cause there's a lot.
There's a lot.
Yeah. Why are we undergoing this like, why is the story happening the way it's happening and everything like that? We'll go into I kind of made the joke about Secret Wars 3, the one that nobody asked for. But we'll talk a lot about Secret Wars because it was going on during that event. And everything that was going on at the time. I'll try to encapsulate that as much as I can in the history. Because originally it was supposed to be a one-shot.
Yeah.
That was a slightly oversized one-shot that it ended up being.
It became a B story. Yeah.
B story in the miniseries that was kind of weird. Why it was.
No one asked for it. No one asked for it.
So again, like I say, we've we're kind of at the point where we're the fountain of content is starting to the well is starting to dry up, so we're trying to stretch things along a little bit too. But yes, we've got that coming up next episode. A couple of weeks, I think, is when we're tentatively got it penciled in. Be sure to like and share and subscribe, like and subscribe to the channel, because that's going to be the best way you guys know when new episodes come out. It's the easiest way, because that way you get the notification and it sends. And make sure when you do subscribe to set to your notifications to all, so that way every time when we do a stream, make my Mayday stream or a Spider Experience stream. Speaking of, we will be doing the Slot Symposium on Sunday, first one. So we're going to be covering the first part of Slot's run and having that discussion. So I get to read
Good
more
luck with that, because you have to deal with Paul.
Yes, it'll be me and Paul.
No offense to Paul. Paul talking about Slot is not something I want to be a part of.
The good news is this is a primer, just to talk about the stuff before his run. So
yes,
we're dodging the bullet for the first episode.
Neil's going to be producer, Adam's going to be the moderator, and then you got me and Paul. So that's the way the setup is going to be.
Good luck with that.
Would you do an episode covering May's appearance in other media like games or merchandise? She likely has so few appearances you could probably yes, I think
we will.
She was in Spider-Man Unlimited.
It'll be probably sometime next year. The main goal right now is to finish everything up to this present moment. So the way we have this set up is we're gonna finish things this year to the end of Spider-Geddon. And then next year we'll talk about everything that has come out this year featuring Mayday. And we'll get into the other media and have an episode about the movie and video games and all that stuff. Marcy,
we had hoped by the time that we got to the movie that the second film was going to be out.
No, I already knew from the get-go, when the moment the rumor came out that nothing had been recorded, I was like, oh, this ain't coming out for a while. So there's that. But I mean, like I said, we'll get to it. We're good. We're trying our best to find good places to kind of pause for breaks in this, because especially this part of the Mayday history, so to speak, we're getting it's heavy. Obviously, I think, I enjoy Spider Island a lot, despite the heaviness, because I think it fixes a lot of the bad taste that we had from this. So I'm excited for us to talk about it. I'm excited we get to do a whole episode about it. But then we have to deal with Web Warriors and the millions of sandwiches that Mayday made.
Talk about monologues.
We'll get into that. That's a whole other story for a whole other time. So But yeah, no, we're getting to it. It
Yeah.
will happen. There's a lot more episodes to go. We are nowhere near the end just yet.
No, we're really not. I mean, I say that we have less stuff. It's just because we're so far along in the journey, and
we've come a long way in 53 episodes, but we are not done yet.
Yeah. So we have not yet begun to fight. Anyway,
yeah.
But yeah, and I we've got a lot more of ideas once we get through the comics story than we want to, do. We've kind of
branch out, look into the fan works and stuff like that. So like we're nowhere near done. It's just we got to get through the canon before we can go zany and start exposing some of you crazy people in your RPs. I'm gonna pull up some role play accounts from
back
in the day. Time ago. Yeah. So
anyway, that will be Kelly doing the history, and I'm just gonna be like, okay, I'm sitting back.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll figure it all out. But with that, we will bid you guys adieu, and I'll let Zach roll us out.
All right. So of course, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for watching us live on YouTube. If you're listening to us on the audio edition, thank you guys as well. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Spidey Dude Network, Twitter over on at Spidey Dude Radio and at Make My Mayday, YouTube. If you've not subscribed, youtube.com/Spidey Dude Radio Network. And then you can find Kelly on Instagram, K McDaniel28. And then, of course, you can also find us on TikTok. If you have not become a Patreon subscriber, go ahead on over to patreon.com/Spidey Network. They get the audio editions a little early. They get other goodies like the Voices from the Eerie video edition, so you get to see everybody's lovely faces and more. And we've got the MTV Spider-Man commentary dropping soon. So we got the Sensational Tier. We got Allison, Farquhar, Cindy, Ed, Georgia, Greg, Janelle, Jessica, Catherine, Kale, Keegar, Laura Howard, Master Drammond, Phoenician, Scott, Vanessa, Vicky, and our newest patron, Lump Moose. Thank you guys for your support, as well as our VIPs, Scott, Sebastian, Vinkman, and Winnipeg Webhead, as well as our patrons that are our friendly neighborhood tier, which if you're listening to the audio edition, I will list out right now. All right. Thanks again, guys, for your support. It all, is very appreciative. If you haven't checked out our other fine shows on the network, like Clone Saga Chronicles and Spectacular Radio and ASM Classics, go check those out. Sabi Cinema Era Podcast and Voices from the Eerie have new episodes that are dropping. New episode of Books of X coming out soon. And, of course, the Spidey Dude Experience having new episodes coming out. We recently covered the latest two issues, 29 and 30 of ASM. Well, the next episode, we'll be covering more. So if you have not checked those out, check those out. Thank you guys for those that were watching with us live. Thank you guys that are listening at home. And we will see you next time here on the Spidey Dude Radio Network.